I'm going to teach you about speaking your truth, activism through art. So picture it, 2016 San Francisco Super Bowl, halftime show. We got Beyonce, we were prepping with Bruno Mars, Chris Martin, and we went out on the field. We dropped the song Formation the night before in San Fran. The video we shot in New Orleans. The album was wrapped up. Lemonade was about to drop a couple days later. This was a love letter to Black women. And I just remember hitting the field, being on the field, like taking selfies and just remembering that, wow, all of these girls have these berets on, this leather looking like beautiful Black Panthers. And then we hit the field with Formation for the first time, and I just remember the feeling that I had, the pride that I had. Just my whole community was lit up and with pride, of what that felt for us. But at the same time, I didn't realize the backlash that we would all get into. We were banned in Canada. There was a lot of press. The president came and Giuliani was talking about us. All these things were happening because we were standing up for and giving reference to the Black community. Whenever you're seen as giving love to the Black community, it's often seen as anti-American. And so at the time, the Black Panther Party was villainized, but to us, they saved us. They brought breakfast to our communities. They policed our communities. They showed us what community was. And so for me, I just remember it was one of the most proud moments of my life and my career when I realized activism and art can actually cross and coincide. And even if it does disrupt and make some people feel something that they're not used to, it's soothing the soul of the people who I look like and share skin like. So for me, that was the first time that I can say that, guys, it's okay to be an activist and an artist at the same time. Art is here to disrupt, it's here to make us feel, it's here to make us happy, it mirrors society, as Nina Simone famously once said. It's here to provoke some kind of emotional draw from us. The same picture I can look at and you can look at as well, but we'll have two different feelings, two different takeaways based off of everything that came prior in our life before that point. So when we're looking at art, there is no one justification or explanation of any kind of art form. So using art to invoke thought, and using art to invoke conversation doesn't start out being an intent. So you don't necessarily intentionally create art for it to be provocating or for it to be amazing or for it to disrupt or be trendy. You want to be a true artist and just lean into yourself and whatever you're trying to get out. So, for example, in music and painting and beauty and fashion, as we look at the 60s, the Cultural Revolution that was happening at the time, we look at the French Renaissance, the Dark Ages, all of the art that was formed that we still have in museums today was happening because there was turmoil in the streets. There was things happening that people weren't comfortable, they weren't happy, they were hungry, there was death, there was famine. You can see that emotion is poured out into their art forms. And so now, as we're in the information age, this is the digital age. So a lot of our art forms, the vehicle for our art now happens to be social at times. It happens to be music. It happens to be something we can feel, we can put on. And so how do you still have a message that runs adjacent to that journey? Is by getting in front of the message. Get in front of the message by having a point of view, having something, stand for something, having something to say. I think the most memorable and iconic artists are the ones who have a point of view, a reference point. And you don't have to have a point of view that everyone agrees with. That's to the contrary. I think having a point of view is looking inside, and as long as it's honest, it's coming from a sincere place, and it's possibly coming from a place where you want to help others or help others learn or see something that they're not able to see. The goal or the benefit and the beauty of being an artist is that you are allowing people to see or feel something. So since you have their attention, make them feel, make them hear, make them listen, allow them to listen, allow them to feel. A lot of people feel that makeup and beauty have nothing to do with politics. So I should just put on an individual lash on a Beyonce and have nothing to do with police brutality that's happening in the streets. And it couldn't be farther from the truth, guys. Like, seriously, honestly, I am only here because of a culmination of these things. When you look at, what's happening, they're not mutually exclusive. You should be able to talk about politics or how you're affected as a citizen, how you're affected as a global citizen, how, your culture is being demonized in the eyes of the police or whatever that looks like, and still do your job. They don't have to go, they're not in different novel directions any longer. And if they are, break those barriers down. I think right now, it doesn't matter what people think about your activism, as long as you're doing something to lift the people. Any person who's not oppressed is always gonna have a voice and an opinion about how the oppressed should act, how the oppressed should rally, how they should protest. In civil society, there's no right way to protest. But if we look back at years prior, if we look at history, guys, we've only gotten here by disrupting the status quo. Activism is older than, it predates the Bible, it's old as antiquity. And when we say activism, it comes in many forms and it looks like different things at different times. But all activism is a search, is an honest point in yourself when you want to become a truth teller, when you want to tell the truth, you want to shed light on a subject. When you're filled with enough of the things that got you to where you are, but you realize that, hey, I'm at this place, but I need to talk about something that may actually take it all the way. You know, when you're willing to risk some things to tell the truth, that's when activism, you're activated. It's not you, no one really sets out to be an activist, you become activated. So, you know, it's the whole thing is, if you're building yourself and you're working on yourself, what are you working or building? If you don't really have a voice, if it doesn't really stand for something. When we fight for ourselves as Black Americans, we fight for everybody. We stand up for everyone. When you look at the women's rights movement, when you look at gay rights movement, animal rights, it all comes from civil rights. It came from someone saying, hey, listen, this journey has to be pushed on in many different directions, and as long as I have a voice, I'm going to use my voice. And my voice is my hands. It started out with being my hands, but now it's my vocal voice. I'm in the boardroom in so many different companies and making sure I hold brands accountable for you guys, not just for myself. It's not just for me. I'm not doing this for my health. I'm doing this so we all have an equitable future. It's easier to educate yourself on racism and injustice than to experience it. But for those who happen to have to experience it, it's our job to keep on speaking. Well, one thing you have to understand about the impact of technology is that it's forever changing. It's changing more rapidly now than it ever has been. We're in the information age. Even though I'm an analog guy in a digital world, I do know that as we look back at the past, there's been so much change happening at such a rapid pace recently. So sometimes it's hard to keep up. Sometimes it's hard to listen or pay attention. And I think the bad part of it all now is the fact that we don't feel. But now, I think that we're so busy and inundated with ourselves that we're not able to see. So in a year like 2020, or a year in the times that we're in now, the blessing is the fact that, you know, I'm gonna keep it real. This pandemic has allowed all of us to see. It's been the ultimate equalizer. You know, everyone knows what's happening. There is no putting the genie back into the bottle. So now it's okay to have a voice. And you never need permission to have a voice, but every once in a while, a reminder is okay. And this is a reminder that it's okay to have a voice. It's okay to stand up for something and have something to believe in. When it comes to activism and when it comes to your artwork, they're adjacent. They're both on a parallel journey. As long as you continue to grow and flourish or thrive as an artist in whatever discipline or genre you're in, your activism or your calling for humanity, your calling for wanting better for people should be also adjacent in that journey. And it's your job as the artist, your job, no one else's, not your agents, not your bookers, not your friends, to communicate that with people, with the world. If you look at something like a project like Lemonade, I was a part of, you know, it moved the needle in culture. It changed the way the music industry worked, but also it was a beautiful love letter to Black women. And at the time, we needed it. We needed to get information. We needed to hit the Super Bowl like Black Panthers, even though we were in bed in Canada the next day. But the goal is it's not here for us to be comfortable. I think artists are also tasked with, you know, carrying society on our backs and being the narrators of time. Get in front of the message, use your voice. It's not just modern, it's people listen, people aren't always easy. It doesn't come easy to use your voice. It doesn't come easy to make people listen, but if you're telling the truth, if you have something to say, if you're saying it in a way that doesn't belittle people, it doesn't make anyone else feel smaller, but you're making sure that you do it because you want to educate. You want to open up some light. You want to bring some light in to an area that's seemingly dark. Guys, you'll have the support, if not your community, at least you have the love of yourself.